So for this last video, we're going to do a quick overview of just everything that kind of has happened and get into some basic new things kind of determining male from female. So if we remember, in the somatic cells, the body cells, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes giving you 46 total. The first 22 pairs of those we call the autosomes, and the last pair number 23, we call the sex chromosomes. These are divided up as X's and Y's. In women, in female bodies, there are those sex chromosomes XX, so 2 X's. And in males, we have XY. Now, I'm going to make my little disclaimer that we are talking in a very black and white matter when it comes to this. There are certain things that can happen that can lead someone to not necessarily match up with this. However, those are generally rare cases. So we're going to be speaking on the generalities rather than the outliers. So before we go any further, I just want to kind of point that out, that there are some individuals, although very rare, who can end up XX and appear and be male, and women who could be XY chromosomally. But again, those tend to be extremely rare cases. We're going to focus on what generally happens. So women in general, XX, men in general, XY. The partner who's going to determine the XY or XX of the offspring is the male. Because females are XX, they can only give an X chromosome to their offspring. But with males, they have a 50-50 chance of giving the offspring an X or giving the offspring a Y, because he has the two different chromosomes. So we look about how this is determined. Again, on the female side of things, XX, every single egg is going to get an X. On the male side, the sperm could have an X or it could have a Y. And so if X and X come together, we end up with XX again, we get female. Over here, X and Y, we get a male. Now, one thing we can do with this information, or if we're trying to find out some information about a person, is we can do what's called a karyotype. A karyotype is going to help us determine the number of each chromosome someone has. We cannot pick out anything else, so we can't see any mutations or genetic defects or anomalies. We can only look at, do we have the right number of chromosomes? So this would be useful for determining if someone has a trisomy or a monosomy condition. Trisomy meaning there is an extra chromosome, and monosomy meaning there is a chromosome missing. Now, there are a lot of conditions that can come from having too many or too few chromosomes. So it's important that we can do this, because that can help us, especially when we know which chromosome it is, that can help us navigate the type of care or support that person might need. Remember that the chromosomes have genes on them, and that the genes are going to be the blueprints or the instructions for making proteins. And so if you have too many chromosomes or not enough, you're changing the amount of that protein or those proteins that that person will have. So they might end up with too much of a certain protein that could cause harm, or they could end up with not enough, and that can also cause harm. So here we see a karyotype, and so we have them paired up. Again, these are homologs, so these are both of the number 1s, as I've been talking about before, and they're about the same size. We see that we're arranging them together. They have the same size, same length, the same kind of coloration pattern that happens. And what we notice is as we go down the line, they get smaller and smaller. So that's the numbering system in place. And this person here, because they have an X and an X, is going to be female. Here's another karyotype. Again, paired up. We look down the list, and everything is nice pairs. But when we get to the 21st pair, we notice there are 3. This is what we call trisomy 21. So trisomy tells us 3 copies rather than 2. 21 is because it's at the 21st chromosome that has the extra one. Trisomy 21 is better known as Down syndrome. So Down syndrome, just as some background, is a condition, again, resulting from an extra chromosome of the 21st chromosome. It is something that is generally survivable, although that person does have some health concerns that do have to be addressed, everything from potential issues with cognition to issues with the heart. And so it's important that these things are identified so that this person can receive the supports that they possibly may need. Many of the monosomies and trisomies are not compatible with life, and so this is one of the reasons why some women may experience something like a miscarriage. It's not something that that woman did. It's not necessarily something that she has something wrong with her or anything. It's not anything like that. This is just something that can happen during the meiosis process. It might have been the egg. It also could have been the sperm. And so I just wanted to bring that up because it's a topic that is extremely important, but is not really talked about often, miscarriage. And I just wanted to make that, kind of point that out, that sometimes these things happen and there's not always anything that a person can do to prevent it. It's just a part of nature and a part of life, as sad and as upsetting as it can be.